So this is what the new evaluation form looks like. At the top, you'll notice that it has the category, but the first 8 rows are all the same in each one of the categories. So this is historical quality. It's 80% of the project. They changed that to make sure that we're focusing on the quality of the history and not getting caught up in the glitzy looks of a project. So the first row is historical argument, and this is the idea that they're really supporting that connection to the theme. So we want to see that communications and history is woven throughout the whole project, that they are supporting it with analysis and not just describing the theme. This is that heart of the project part. The next column is wide research. Okay, so wide research. They want to see that they're integrating the body of credible research into the fully developed historical argument. Now, what that means is that it's obvious that the students have multiple sources, that they're not just finding one or two secondary sources and applying them. Wide research, and you'll notice that there's a primary source but no secondary source. Primary sources have its own category. So wide research is really this idea that they're finding academic journals, they're finding reference materials, they're looking beyond just encyclopedias though, and finding sort of the larger academic work based on the topic. Primary sources gets its own category. A primary source is a document created during the time period that lets us know about the time period. For example, if we're studying the American Revolution, George Washington's letters would be a primary source. A newspaper from the time period would be a primary source. You could even include artifacts like musket balls would be primary sources, at least for the terms of this project. Secondary sources are created after the fact. Those are modern works of history about the past. So we want to see that the students are using a lot of primary sources to help support their argument. Sometimes students will just add in pictures that they think kind of go along with the topic. If they're just there for looks, for adding to the visual aesthetic and not helping to develop the argument, that's not going to meet a superior category. Historical context would be sort of that first chunk of the project where they're trying to explain the causation and the larger context of the main event. So it's the things that are leading up to the main event, things that are helping set the stage. Multiple perspectives. This is new to the form. And what they want to see is that students are able to see more than just one view of the past. There's multiple perspectives being displayed in the argument. This could be from the time period. For example, if their project is about Martin Luther King Jr. and his I Have a Dream speech. They're not just going to present Martin Luther King Jr.'s version of things. They're going to talk about what a more conservative person would have said, what a more radical person would have said. What's the black reaction? What's the white reaction? So they're bringing multiple perspectives to the project. This is going to be one of the ones that I think is going to be a harder get for some of the students. Historical accuracy, is the information accurate? Now, you might be an expert in the subject, but more than likely you're not. So we're going to check that annotated bibliography to make sure that they have a lot of sources that are helping to prove their position. If you know about the topic, that's fantastic. Remember that these are middle and high school students, so take that into consideration when you're making your critiques. You can add information in for them to tell them to make suggestions on where to look for things, different topics that they might look into to add to their understanding. But do remember these are middle and high school projects. Significance in history, that's that last third, which is what are the consequences? What are the outcomes of this? What are the short-term consequences, but what are the long-term impacts? And it's really great if they can make modern connections to the past. The last one is student voice, and this one is also going to be a little tricky for some students. This is going beyond just finding things that they've read in the source material and trying to combine things together so that their analysis really shines through the project. So we have those 8 categories, and then below that are the strengths and then areas for improvements. Again, we want to have positive feedback and try to couch any criticisms or critiques in that positive fashion. I'll give some suggestions for that in a little bit. But following the first 8 rows, we have the second page, which is going to be based on category specific information. And I'm going to make a separate video for each one of the specific categories.